And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking the Belgian Grand Prix preview. What is going to happen? Yes, it's been not quite the summer break, but nearly 3 weeks since Lando Norris's British Grand Prix dream. Let's say Hamilton not quite making the podium, but a certain Nico Hülkenberg did for the first time ever. Now with that championship lead slightly smaller between Lando Norris and Piastri, Max Verstappen seemingly potentially leaving Red Bull to go to Mercedes, Ferrari with their new suspension. What is going to happen at the Belgian Grand Prix? So here we go, it is officially race week. As you can see, the wonderful Formula One poster, to this day, okay, Lando Norris makes sense. Max Verstappen makes sense. Nico Hülkenberg got a podium, makes sense. Can you spot the odd one out? Have you done it yet? I mean, this is no Dora the Explorer levels of questions. Yes, it's the guy on the far left. What? I mean, why? Oh, Lance. So, let's move on then to Ferrari. La Gazzetta della Ferrari. Hamilton and Leclerc. This is in relation to their new suspension, which I've seen. And they were saying it's slightly troubling, albeit they only tested 100 kilometres at Mugello. They didn't really feel that their suspension made much of a difference. Now, as it says here, that test was indeed conducted with what is fixed setups and demo tyres. The demo tyres are not race tyres, so yeah. It renders the test not completely pointless, but yeah, in the genre of pointless. Now, the new suspension combined with the updated floor is reported to gain just 0.1 seconds. Not much. Having said that, that's on paper. Now, if it gives the drivers, especially Lewis Hamilton, who likes a stable rear end, or knows what his rear end is doing, no pun intended, the confidence level could be more than 0.1. If that makes sense. If you're more confident in the car, you think, oh, I can push more, then 0.1 could quickly become 0.2 to 0.3. And then you were talking differences between the front row and 6th, 7th or 8th. Telemetry showed improved rear stability under braking, which is why I'm saying how important it is, and less rear lift and reduce aerodynamic imbalance. Could we see a Ferrari win in Spa? Not really sure. Could we see a Ferrari podium? I'm not saying very likely, but I want to say very possibly. So moving on from this, Lewis Hamilton. This is what I thought. This is Daniel Valente on Twitter put this. And he's put quite an interesting stat. He's put Hamilton has never finished worse than 4th at Spa. We've got 18 starts, 13 finishes, 13 top 4 finishes, 11 podiums and 5 wins. I'm assuming the others are potential DNFs, but will the streak continue for the potential GOATs? We'll have to see, won't we? Now, in relation to the weather, this is obviously today. It's rainy. A lot of people are saying, is Spa going to rain? The difficulty with Spa, kind of like near the sea, it's a microclimate. If any of you have done your basic geography, which means anything can go. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Okay, when we look at Friday, it has potential for rain at 11 o'clock, but that's it. I mean, we're talking 40-20%. Okay, let's move on to Saturday, albeit this is Monday the 21st of July we're looking at. We're recording this. Saturday again, 30% between 2 and 5. Yeah. And let's move on to Sunday. So Sunday's weather looking once again sunny. 30% chance. Never zero. So I don't think it's going to rain. I don't think it's going to rain personally. This is Pirelli's big preview. Now, interestingly, they're taking the C1, the C2 and the C3 compound. What the guy tweeted here, which is Holiness, which we use for a lot of our data. Awesome. For the first time in several years, they've said, Pirelli has decided to skip a tyre compound, which I think is interesting. C1, C3 and C4, no C2. Which could be quite interesting. They're talking about, when you look at the numbers here, number of laps 44, race distance 308 kilometres, a circuit length of 7 kilometres, one of the longest, if not the longest circuit I think we go to. One of them. Lap record of a 1:44.7. Now, when we look at the traction, they've given it a 4, asphalt grip 3, abrasion 3, track evolution 3, tyre stress 5, and you'll see that when we do our track guide. It is lots of fast corners. Braking a 4, lateral a 5, downforce a 2, low downforce, albeit it's very much a track of 2 halves. which we'll get into in a second. So this is the Drivers' Championship on the right, with Piastri leading by 234 to Lando Norris's 226. When you compare it to last year, it was Max Verstappen on 255, Norris on 171. So, I mean, Verstappen's nearly on the same that Norris was at this point last year. And sadly, I mean, Lewis Hamilton is slightly less. I think this was after his British Grand Prix win last year. He's on 103, Leclerc on 119, albeit Ferrari were a lot better this time last year. Antonelli on 63, Russell 147. He's destroying Antonelli, isn't he? But there we go. Hulkenberg in the thanks for his podium in that top 10 is absolutely crazy, isn't it? Last year it was Alonso Stroll in that top 10. Sadly, no. And Perez on 118. No Red Bull driver other than Verstappen is anywhere near that top 10, which is embarrassing for Red Bull. Is that the reason why Christian went? Maybe. I think, to be fair, there's one of many reasons. Now, when we look at the circuit, before we are going to have a little drive on it, as you can see, it's very, very fast. When you look at there's two sectors here. You've got the yellow bit, and then you've got like the turquoisey bit, kind of like Mercedes, like a Mercedes sponsor. So these two are, as you can see, they're very, very fast. Even sector 3 is really, really flowing. The slowest, ironically, the first sector has the slowest corner. The source, the hairpin. Other than that, it's just, full beans. And then you've got the red circuit, which is the twisty bit, which you need a bit more downforce for. But then, if you're going to have more downforce, you're going to sacrifice a lot of time in the straights, which is not particularly good for the race, because that's where the DRS is. You're going to get past. But then if you have two less downforce, you're going to be really fast, and you're going to completely ruin your tyres in that middle sector. You see, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. So let's then have a look at the racetrack, shall we? And after we do indeed have a look at the racetrack, we're going to count down the best drivers so far this season, kind of like a mid-season table half-term report. Yeah, one of them. Sorry about that. I figured it's a fun way, because we always talk about the drivers going into our previews. So as you can see behind me, it is the wonderful, the beautiful Eau Rouge. But enough of Eau Rouge. What we want to do is we want to get into that track guide, don't we? So here we go. We're coming at what you want. This is known as the bus stop, where we're coming out the bus stop corner. Nice and calmly. It has changed over the years into what it's going to be the first corner, and it's a really short run from the start. But the first corner, otherwise known as La Source, we've seen plenty of crashes here. You want to click the apex, and as soon as you can, bolt all the way down to Eau Rouge. Now, Eau Rouge used to be a really challenging corner. It was one of those not quite flat. If you did it flat, you crash corners. Now, in these cars, it's pretty much flat. The car goes a tiny bit loose, but yeah, it's not the scary animal that it used to be. Now, down the Kemmel Straight, this is where most of the passing is probably going to be done under DRS, as we're getting ready quite late for braking for Les Combes. Lots of passing here. This is where Hamilton lost his front wing to Nico Rosberg into Bruxelles. I have no idea whether I've pronounced that right, if I'm honest. So through we go down into now, I think it's going to be the unnamed corner. Well, we've gone down there past Lagoon into Pouan, a double apex left-hander. It is pretty much flat in the current Formula 1 cars. We gave ourselves a little love lift into Campas here, which is kind of like a crazy chicane, a right-left flick. Really, really difficult to get right, but you want to get it right, because then you're into Stavelot. And as you can see, we don't. We completely go wide into Corpore Frere. And as we are now full beans, we're coming up to one of the more challenging corners, at least it used to be, particularly a GT car, not quite an F1 car, but you need to get the line right into Blanchard, the big corner here, until the next braking point, which is going to be the bus stop chicane. As we come here, a lot of people brake really, really late, past 100, on the power. You don't want to brake too late, you don't want to mess up your lap, and nice and calm now from the bus stop back into that start-finish straight to do it all over again about 40-something times. So from that then, let's have a little talk about the Let's have a look at the stats then, shall we? Let's talk about the stats. As we've already told you, it's 44 laps. There's 20 turns officially. The circuit was first opened in 1925 for the Belgium Grand Prix, visited in 1950 for the first time by Formula 1, 57 races held, a track record by Lewis Hamilton of 141.2, lap record of 146.286 from Valtteri Bottas, that was in 2018. Hamilton's track record from 2020. So after that, Schumacher is the man around here. He's got the most wins with 6 in total. Now, interesting, there are 3 previous winners of the Belgian Grand Prix on the current grid. Lewis Hamilton has won at Spa 5 times. Max Verstappen has won the Belgian Grand Prix 3. Charles Leclerc took his maiden Formula 1 here in 2019. Alberto Ascari, Fangio, Clark, Senna, Hill, Schumacher, Kimi Raikkonen and Max Verstappen are the 8 drivers who, yep, they've taken back-to-back victories here. Schumacher's the only one to have taken consecutive Belgian Grand Prix victories on multiple occasions, having done so in 95, 96, 97, and then again in 2001 and 2002. Now, June Clark and Senna share the record for the most consecutive victories here, though, with 4. Clark won in every season between 62 and 65. It is known as the driver's circuit, so are we surprised at Ayrton Senna then, from the year 1988 to 1991 one? There wins also mean that Lotus and McLaren share the record for the most consecutive team wins at the track. Both British drivers have won at Spa, but not both, but British drivers in general have won at Spa more times than any other driver from any other nation. Sharing that top step, a total, yep, you can go out and drink in Europe 18 times. Now, the longest streak of Belgian Grand Prix winners at Spa came between 65 and 86, where there are no repeat victors in the 8 races held at the track during the period, 65 and 86. 8 races between that. Wow, that's not very good at all, is it? Surely not. Doesn't make any sense. Obviously, I'm not going to go against it, but there we go. In terms of Grand Slam, we've only got one single one. That was Jack Brabham. He's the only driver to record a Grand Slam. He did so by taking pole, leading every lap, setting the fastest lap on his way to victory all the way back in 1960. That's probably older than most of my audience here. But there we go. So we've done that. We've done the track guide, as you can see here. So let's talk about the drivers then. Yeah, let's kind of do like a half-term report thing for the drivers. So we're going to go from worst to best, and let's check out the worst person. I'm so sorry, there has to be a worst person. It's this guy, Franco Colapinto. Why? Because once again, he was so awesome in the Williams. He was so fantastic in the Williams last year at times, and here he looks no better than the guy next up. And the next guy above him is Jack Doohan. I mean, you could pretty much lump these two together, and not many people are going to bat an eyelid. Should Alpine have given Jack Doohan a bigger chance? Yes, absolutely. And if he hadn't improved up until now, this would have been the 3-week break, then you give Colapinto the rest of the season. But Alpine are, I think, just as much to blame, if not more, for their driver issues that they've currently got. So next up, we've got this guy here, Liam Lawson. Now, yeah, slightly controversial maybe. This guy got kicked out of Red Bull. Rumour had it, the engineers at the Red Bull team said he's completely lost his head. He's not mentally there after he got destroyed 2 races in a row. Should have Red Bull given him more of a chance? Absolutely. Should he be in there in the first place? It's doubtful. But also I wouldn't say he's getting his butt just kicked by Hadjar, but Hadjar's definitely most certainly showing the way. So Liam Lawson came in 2023 with all this fanfare, replaced Ricciardo in 2024 to the point where I don't know if he would have done much better or worse than had Daniel Ricciardo stayed. And would another team have nabbed him? Potentially. Would they have been disappointed? I don't know. But Red Bull just seems to be a bit of a toxic team at the moment for many reasons. Next up, we have Lance Stroll. Okay, he did have his best start to the season. Maybe a tiny bit, don't want to say lucky, because I guess you make your own luck. But then with his comments about how rubbish the car was after the British Grand Prix, at one point he was 3rd. Making Lance Stroll mistakes. He shouldn't even be in Formula 1. There's many better drivers that should be taking his place. But Team Nepo, I can't take Aston Martin seriously until this guy goes. I'm sorry. Next up, we've got Yuki Tsunoda, who was faring a lot better, wasn't he? Again, with in last year, and this year was looking good. Goes to Red Bull. The reason why he's so far down, it's really hard to tell, because like Alpine, you have to blame the Red Bull team. Red Bull officially now, beyond any doubt, bear in mind now Yuki Tsunoda's there, they have a second car problem. Full stop. Exclamation mark. But then Tsunoda, he chose to go there. He's made the big mistake was Imola when he completely rinsed the car, and that really affected the updates he got, and he's always kind of like been a step behind Max, which is something you really shouldn't be doing. So Bortoletto, he's done really well. He's fared against all the people I think from here are doing really well, in my opinion. So Bortoletto, really solid. I always wonder if he's swearing in that picture. Sorry. Yeah, he's been absolutely fantastic, has Gabriel. And I see no reason for him not to continue. He showed Nico Hulkenberg the race sometimes. Yes, he's not maybe quite as many points, but I certainly think he's definitely deserved his place in Formula 1, as has this guy here. Now, when Carlos Sainz went to Williams, there was a big fanfare of, no, Ferrari sacked the wrong guy, and Sainz is going to destroy Albon. I think both have proven potentially to be untrue. Sainz never won a sprint race. Lewis Hamilton has. And Lewis Hamilton has been a touch behind Charles Leclerc at times. Albeit, when you look at the British Grand Prix, where the car was really hard to handle, it was Lewis Hamilton not making the mistakes and Charles Leclerc making those mistakes where experience counts. So, for the life of me, I think at the moment, Ferrari made the right decision but Carlos Sainz has got more things to worry about and that he's got a certain Alex Albon to worry about, hasn't he? So next up, we've got Ollie Behrman, who I think has done a fairly good job overall. But the problem with Ollie is going to be consistency. He has shown flashes of brilliance. He's worried, I think, at times, Esteban Ocon, to the point where Ocon has even looked a bit like, oh no, I don't know about this. This is not particularly very great. And then he just makes silly mistakes like speeding and crashing in the pit lane under the red flag at Silverstone and ruin any chance of him getting a point, which is, I wouldn't even say at this point it's not a rookie error, it's just a silly error. That's why I've put him behind Ocon, even though Ocon I think has got more points than him. But Ocon I think is doing about as good as you could realistically do with the Haas. He's been very solid. He appears, yes, I know the two Haas boys. I think didn't they? They touched the last. I think they touched the last race. Was it the out? No, I think it was the Haas boys. But he's doing a lot better, and he seems a lot happier there than he does with Alpine. Speaking of the next Alpine seat, I think Pierre Gasly. It's really interesting. It's Pierre Gasly simply because he doesn't have a really good teammate at the moment. So we don't really know how good he's doing, but kind of like when Albon was in the Williams, everyone said he's doing really, really well, but it was really hard to get a comparison. Now we know how good Alex Albon is, but I do think Pierre Gasly is doing a solid job, and I feel that he's getting the absolute most out of that Alpine. I don't think any more could really be asked of him. More could be asked of this guy here. The reason why he's up there, he had that amazing podium Canada. He had that amazing debut in very difficult conditions in Australia where he came through the field. Double thumbs up. But then he has very high highs and then very low lows, kind of like Ollie Behrman. But I think he's been a touch better than Ollie Behrman, albeit he is in a better car with that pole position in Miami, for example. I did mention obviously his first podium in Canada where he did really well, so his potential is way up there. I can't help but feel that Mercedes have put too much pressure on Kimi Antonelli. It's not the fans. Mercedes replacing Lewis Hamilton, making out in the media, this guy is going to be amazing. He's the second coming. Yeah, no. He's, when you compare, for example, Lewis Hamilton's debut season, even Alonso's debut season in a Minardi, when you consider the fact that he's in a Minardi, Piastri's debut season, they all seem, up to this point, to be a bit more impressive. Not that I'm saying he's not impressive, he's just not at the level that the hype expected him to be. And speaking of Alonso, here he is. He's not scored many points, has he? But I think he's now, I think, as we got into the second quarter of the season, dominating Lance Stroll again, showing you how getting the absolute most out of that Aston Martin. And over the last few races, I don't really think you could have asked more. So next up, we have Lewis Hamilton, who is just behind Charles Leclerc. Now, he's done a really solid job. The only Ferrari driver to ever win a sprint race. What more can you say? Just missing out on pole. That, I think, was his own issue by pitting one lap too early in the wet for Silverstone. However, He was fast enough to get a podium. I think in Belgium it's going to be really interesting. Leclerc is a tiny bit ahead of him in the championship, but I don't really think either care. They just really want to get that car sorted. And I think once they sort it, Hamilton's close enough to Leclerc to really, I think, will start bothering Leclerc. Not maybe in qualifying, but definitely, I think if he can get happy in the race, Leclerc's going to be a bit worried. But as we know, the fastest guy in qualifying has come out recently and said he's really struggling in qualifying, particularly at Silverstone, where he was out-qualified by Lewis Hamilton. Okay. But still, questions, they're still as good as Leclerc is, and I think he has done better than Lewis so far this season. There's still massive question marks around Charles Leclerc. Can he be a world champion? Can he be consistent enough without the mistakes? He hasn't proven that yet, but I think he's doing a solid job. Like Hamilton, I don't think they can do much better than the Ferrari, than that Ferrari. Next up, we've got Hulkenberg. No, this isn't recency bias. He has got the absolute most out of, I think, that Sauber. Full stop. I think there's only potentially one other driver that's got the most out of his car. We'll speak about that in a bit. But he's got the most out of the Sauber. Yes, sometimes he's been out driven, particularly in qualifying, by Bortoletti, but when it's counted, he's got the points, which is why he's so high up. I think brilliant. And our top rookie, Isaac Hadjar. So I was listening to the race podcast today, and they suggested that maybe the best thing for Hadjar was bailing that car into the wall under safety car conditions for the first race, because not that he was arrogant, but it most certainly humbled him, and it made him think, okay. And ever since then, he's been really, really solid. He's come back like a king, and he has shown the way. He's the leader in the V-Carb, in spite of a more experienced and a very much hyped Liam Lawson, at least at the beginning of the year. And I think he's been brilliant. He's not from Japan, by the way. I need to change that. But yeah, I think Hadjar has done fantastic. I don't think you could have asked any more from him. Easily the best rookie. Alex Albon, a guy that's pretty much minus a few silly errors, got the most out of his Williams. No, he's not the guy that's got the absolute most out of his car. That's still to come. But yeah, I think, what I don't know though, other than stopping a few of the mistakes, what more you could have asked from Alex Albon? He's outshone Carlos Sainz for the first half of the year. Yes, Carlos Sainz is still getting used to the Williams, like Hamilton's getting used to the Ferrari, etc., etc. But I don't think anyone expected him to dominate Sainz like he has. And there we go. His stock has completely risen. And it's climbed since he joined Williams, and it is still climbing higher. So 4 left. The guy who just misses the podium. Shock horror, I know. Slightly controversial, maybe. Comment below, let us know. Max Verstappen now. He's won races in the Red Bull. People are saying, no, that Red Bull shouldn't be winning any races at all. It's all about Max. Yeah, he has done absolutely fantastic in that Red Bull. However, let's not forget, the reasons why the second car is struggling so much is the reason why Max is so good in that car. The car's designed for him. I don't care what any engineer says. It's more obvious now than ever. Albeit, it's still quite a difficult car to drive. But he has won races in it. He's won races that maybe, like for example, like Japan, he probably shouldn't have done, where the McLaren boys really let him off the hook. But he's been there, and he's made everything count. The reasons why he's down, Saudi Arabia, let's take a shortcut, and then let's just try and strategize and cheat our way to that 5-second penalty. Basically, well, not cheating, but using the regulations in their favour by not letting the McLaren car behind them into free air, which they so really, really needed. They did that, and then we've got that incident in Spain where he just barged into George Russell. What was that about? In my good conscience, because of that, I can't even put him on the podium for the first half of the season. You don't drive, and he should have been disqualified from that. That is not how how I'd expect an F1 4-time world champion to conduct himself. Next up, we've got Lando Norris, and the reason why he's ahead of Max is because Lando Norris doesn't play bumper cars as much as Max Verstappen. He has missed opportunities. For example, that silly incident in Canada, and had it not been for Max's silly incident in Spain, he'd definitely be behind Max in our driver ratings for the first half of the year. But he came in as the favourite, and about, a quarter way through the season, he was very much not looking the favourite. It was Piastri. He's now won Austria. He won Monaco. He's won Austria, though. And significantly, he won Silverstone. Yes, Piastri did make that mistake. But I think because of that, he is once again one of the favourites. I think he's, in spite of being a few points behind Piastri, he's got to be equal favourite with Piastri. But a lot's going to depend on I think the next couple of races, and Lando Norris's head, I don't believe, is as strong as Piastri. So if he does a really solid next couple of races, that's going to be really good for his confidence going into that second half of the season after the summer break. Now, here is the man that has got the absolute most out of his car, I think. George Russell. He's driving. This is the best George Russell we've seen. Yes, he won Canada. He gets podiums. Sometimes the sea parts and he moses his way into a podium. But still, you got to be in it to win it. A bit like the way he won the Austrian Grand Prix. If you remember last year, this year he won the Canadian Grand Prix, completely deserved. And that Mercedes can be a handful at times. He's destroyed his rookie teammate, which is kind of to be expected. If Max Verstappen replaces George Russell, I think it will be an absolute travesty. That we've been saying. Not that Max doesn't deserve to be in a Mercedes, but why are you replacing him with, I think, one of the best drivers of the year so far? And the only driver that is better than George Russell, I think, is Oscar Piastri. Now, he's had a fantastic season. He had that wobble in Australia. That never gave up, though, did he? Never gave up. He rickrolled back into the Australian Grand Prix, and his head up until Silverstone has been dead strong. He has been Mr. Iceman. Now, at Silverstone, when he made that mistake under the safety car, got the penalty, he was obsessed with how unfair it was, to the point where he wanted to swap him and Lando around. It was all very, very silly. It was a lot of pressure. He looked a bit, that was not particularly good. And that's the first time we've seen a kink in his armour, which is going to be really interesting. Now, we've had 3 weeks as to how he's going to handle it going into the Belgium Grand Prix. But there we go. Oscar Piastri, our man of, so far, the first half of the year. So that's pretty much it for our Belgium Grand Prix preview. We've given you our half-term report, whatever you want to call it. If you made it to the end, please give us a subscribe. That would be amazing. But until then, we will speak to you soon. Thank you very much for watching. Hit that like button. Even if you are subscribed, that will give us a smile. And stay safe. Thank you.